All right, you're welcome back. Now we're going to be talking information gathering and all of the things along those lines. I have here with me two very important guests who are going to be helping me tackle that situation. Ophyhia, Abhulimehen, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And of course, Ophyhia, Ibekwe, both from the strategy for Chain Reactions Nigeria. That's what the organization is called. Thanks for coming. Now, before the break, I was talking with a guest here and we're talking about data collection and how that's really poor in Nigeria. What does Chain Reaction Nigeria do with gathering information and all of that? Let's start with you.
Okay, thank you for having us today. Chain Reactions Nigeria is a public relations firm, but essentially we're an integrated communications firm. We've evolved from mere PR, media relations, to integrated public communications rather. But for us, what stands us out in Chain Reactions and why we go into data gathering is insight. We pride ourselves in strategy. One of the things that we do, and from the bottom level to the senior level in the organization, is strategy. Before we develop any campaign at all, any communication campaign, it must be founded on strategy. And we believe that if strategy guides whatever campaign or whatever, if it's government communication, government policies, if you have a strategy driving it, then definitely that communication will definitely be spot on. And it has all the, all the necessary ingredients to be successful.
Why we keep hearing that it's very hard to gather information generally in Nigeria. How true is that for you, seeing as, especially with your work that you do?
Okay, for that, we go through the whole stress of either commissioning our research or doing it ourselves to the level we could, but we're not a research company. For that, really, we do have challenges with getting information out there, even just as simple as pictures, photos. If you get to build a storyboard, for example, in Nigeria, and you're trying to get the right pictures to say the story, is always a challenge. It's either when you Google, let's say, photos of a young man in Nigeria, what you see is probably one horrific picture out there. So for us, we know data out there is limited, and that's why going on with even probably your next question, we had taken this further to do commission research on the Nigerian youths and go out there to create this data for not just us, but for the industry at large.
Is this peculiar to Nigeria? That's talking about data gathering. I know some people say it's an African thing, but is Nigeria's case peculiar, and why is it?
Okay, well, we are not going to, talk too much on why, because the reasons are numerous. But there are various reasons, obvious reasons why. But what we have done is to commission a research which is, it is globally relevant, but then locally our own research. So because if you see what we're doing at Chain Reactions is we're going to be launching a trends report which we are commissioned, and you find that this research is while it's globally relevant, like I said, it is something that is localized. The results are things that the insights from it we can use to then generate localized solutions for businesses.
Can you give me an example of something along those lines?
Okay, an example will be okay, there's a new trend about young people wanting to tell their own stories this day. The image that we had of the African is the one that people have been told, the ones with maybe bugging, earrings, and then lives in the rural area. But you find these days that people want to tell their own story. You have you find these days that on Twitter or on platforms, on social media platforms, people want to define who the new African is. I'm the new African, and then with images and with their voices and with their own stories and written articles, they talk about themselves. So now that in itself is it's a new trend,
You did mention something about, the international, abroad and here, and how you have to localize it and all of that. I read something about Trend Watching UK.
Yes.
What is that about?
Okay, Trend Watching UK is an international trend spotting company. They're based in the UK, but they have presence in 80 countries in the world. And what we did with them, they're the ones that we commissioned to do this research for us at Chain Reactions. And but what they did, they have trend spotters on ground and trend interpreters on ground. So over a period of time, they studied behaviors, psychologies. Why are the youth in Nigeria beginning to behave in a specific way? Because if you look at the real definition of trend itself, it's like a current style or a current behavior. When there's a movement towards a specific a specific behavior, a specific direction. So what we did over time is to understand beyond, this is the trend now, heels, there's block heels going on now. But beyond that, why are people keying into that trend? So that's what they did. They have a number of trend spotters, in localized, who all they do from, daily and all of that is to go into town and spot these various trends. And then we interpret it into what's obtainable in Nigeria.
How different is a trend from a fad? Because those words sort of, can they be used interchangeably? Okay,
in the context of what we're saying in terms of consumerism, a trend is, let me start with a fad. A fad is something that just happens, an activity that just happens, and you have a large population following through it. I'm saying this in context of consumerism now. But a trend for us is something that you have that activity going on with a large crowd of people, but you interpret it to be, why are they doing this? So I give you an example for.
So a fad may not necessarily have a reason.
Yes, it might just be something all going on, and that's it. So for example, the idea of selfie. Now, that's become a culture for us. We even have a dictionary meaning for it. Now, selfie didn't start today. We think it did. But there's always been this, will I call it the love of self, to see yourself look a certain way. There's will I call it an egoistic reason behind it. And now what has happened is you now have companies tying into that trend. It's an insight, it's something that it can inform you in terms of your product development, policies, communication. So what we do in terms of trend, and when you're talking consumerism, is how do you break this fad or whatever activity that is popular and break it into the nitty-gritty. So not just, okay, what is popular, what's trending now is XYZ, so we must do XYZ. So how can we use this XYZ? What does it mean to us? What does it mean to the consumer? And those are the things that we go the extra mile to find out.
I think I can add a two to that. Recently, the APC elections in Nigeria, one, just by definition of what a trend is and how chain reactions keyed into it, there was a need. We saw there was a need to actually get the youth to be active in voting, because there was from research we found that quite a number of them had not registered, and we thought, okay, what is it that we would use to reach out to these people? And from insight from research, we realized that the Nigerian youth consume music like water. And we thought, okay, how best can we move these people to go and vote? That was when we came up with the celebrity music video, but it was celebrity led. And then we did a shot of it with Funke Akindele. I don't know if you recall. Funke Akindele, we had Desmond Elliott in it, the parts Change Nigeria is in your hand. And then we did that whole video. And you won't believe, in 72 hours, it was already trending within 72 hours. We had people who had visited, and now for us, that's the trend. There is music, and as a business, how we keyed into it was to help our client or the government at that time to reach out to their target through that trend, and which is what we'll be doing on Thursday, 12th November. Is we have commissioned a research with the Trend Watching UK, and what they have done is to find out a certain set behavioral characteristics of the youth, and then we've brought it up into 15 mega trends, which we'll be unveiling on Thursday, and on Thursday at the Protea GRA Ikeja, and also we've titled this Unwrapping the New Natives. So it's like, okay, we already have these people, because it's not like we've reborn anyone, it's not like, but they are there. But what you thought you knew about the youth, businesses, governments, come here, insights about them. So that's what it is.
All right, just quickly now before we go, what does all of this, you talked about the how initially, about how and why we take selfies and why we follow trends and all that, but just quickly now, what does all of this do for Nigeria in the long run? Does it affect the economy in any way? Does it affect our lifestyles in any way? Trend spotting as a whole, or tracking all of this information?
I believe it has a huge impact. In fact, we believe it has a huge impact. And that's saying, for example, the UN Population Funds just released statistics in 2014 that 65% of Africa as a whole are aged below 35. And that 35 of them are significantly between 15 and 35 years old. That tells us that a huge chunk of the African population are youth. And if you can capture the youth today, which every day there's always someone turning 18 years old, you are capturing the tomorrow. So it's about being relevant and about finding out the right things that you need to do. And coming to the point of how can this affect Nigeria, it's about localized solutions. So if we find out what really works for us in terms of trend, who these people are, because it's beyond demography of, okay, our target audience is age X, Y, Z, does this. But Ibekwe, for example, you probably are sitting down here, but you probably still like to have your nice bole. You get
I
my
do,
point.
I do.
You know, with your granite and dip it into that red oil.
Better with fish.
You see, but meanwhile, somebody is painting you up in terms of his or her own marketing plan and saying, "Oh, Ebuka, no, Ebuka, it has to just always be this AC environment." And I'm not saying it doesn't demean you or anything;
Yeah.
it's what you like. So for us, trend spotting does that. We go deep into these things, and when you find that, when you come to the report, you're able to find localized solutions for be it your policies or communications as a whole.
All right, thank you very much, Ophyhia. Thank you very much, Ofure. 12th of November, you said we're going to be waiting to see the 12 behavioral, you said?
No, there are 15 mega trends.
15 mega
that we'll be
trends,
showing.
sorry, not
And
12.
I think it's also right for us to mention here that we have carefully selected panelists, and they're from various sectors of the economy. So, for instance, we have Moody for fashion, and then we have people from sports. We have Elvis Daniels from Etisalat, and then from various. We also have Kulia Lion, for instance. We also have Olori Supergirl, the social media influencer. So we're going to have people talking about these trends as we unveil it. They're then going to discuss how we're going to plug in the results or the insights from these trends. And I'm sure that immensely it's going to affect various sectors of the economy.
Looking forward to it on the 12th of November. Thank you very much for being here today. Very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more. Please stay with us.